welcome to another episode of Full Lean for your weekly MotoGP and all things motorbike related and updates. Joining me today in the studio from South Africa, the famous, the infamous Don Manfuri. Hey Don.
Hey, how you doing, mate?
This week, MotoGP announced there'll be no more Phillip Island after this year. The contract is up at Phillip Island. 30 years, I believe. In 1997, the contract started at Phillip Island. I could speaking under correction. And they're pulling it. And apparently it's going to Adelaide, another city down in Australia. And it's going to be a road or street circuit. And from memory, our last street circuit was the Isle of Man. And that was quite dangerous. So there's all sorts of opinions around it. And I've got a little bit of info around this. What did you hear about this, Don?
Well, okay, I mean, it's tricky, and it's all very political in a very diverse sort of way. It's not just kind of one thing. Obviously, I don't live in Australia. I don't know the behind the scenes. I am seeing what people are saying. That's both journalists reporting, it's people commenting, it's people that live there, sort of saying. I mean, and I'm trying to decide what is good and what is bad, because so what do we hear is, okay, Phillip Island, the circuit itself is amazing. The actual track where guys ride is amazing. Everything else is horrible. Apparently the pits are a joke, the facilities are a joke. The crowds just get stuck in the mud, and there's no proper grandstands, there's no proper facilities, there's nothing there. Now I went to Phillip Island in 1997. I was a teenager. I went there with my folks, and I mean, in those days it was sort of a rustic sort of circuit, beautiful strip of tar, beautiful surroundings, but not really a lot. I mean, the pits were very poky-oak, and that's 1997 now. Pits were very poky-oak. Not much going on behind it. People they rented these little cabins, these portable cabins that the riders sort of got to sit in instead of motorhomes or nice anything. And there's no toilets. And I'm told people had to, riders, because they didn't want to go out and walk all the way to the toilets, which are somewhere far away, they had to urinate in the bottles. You know what I mean, and stuff like that. And in those days,
that's ridiculous.
There were no grandstands. People sort of made do with, whatever open land. Now, we're told that this is, okay, again, what I'm hearing, I haven't seen official kind of reports of this. But what I'm hearing is the owner of the circuit wanted to upgrade everything. They wanted to, even here, he wanted to build a hotel, more toilets, more everything. The local government said no.
But the thing is, Donovan, it does have a wider... It fans out a bit. There's more implications to this than just these things. The region itself, they reckon the MotoGP would generate in the region of about 55 million annually.
That's Australian dollars.
In that specific region, Australian dollars, yep. And then they reckon within that region of Phillip Island, because it's about a 2-hour drive out of Melbourne, about 29 million, close on $30 million would actually remain in that area, and 294 full-time people will actually be losing their jobs because of the MotoGP leaving. And there's more to it, Donovan. Like, when the MotoGP comes around, a lot of people arrive, so you've got all this accommodation, Airbnbs, the RV rental market, rental cars, hotels, airplanes coming in and out. Fine, it's a 2-hour drive, but people still have to get there. Plus all the catering stuff and cleaning stuff and all that. And it's impacting the region tremendously, losing it, and it's so sad. And a lot of people are expressing concern about the region after what's going to happen. I have heard rumors that people are actually saying it's probably a good thing that it moves to Adelaide. It's going to be more accessible. And for the younger people that's coming into motorsport, tangibly accessible to actually see the racing and have access to it and probably build up that new generation. And if we think back to its Formula One, and I believe MotoGP is building towards that, there's this street circuit spectacle. It does to me that it tastes exactly like that.
Okay, it depends what you're selling. Okay, are you selling a venue or are you selling a race? if you're selling a race, and forgive me, I mean, I'm old school. I want to watch motor. I want to watch racing. I want to watch bikes, riders that are like gladiators, slogging it out at 300 and something kilometers an hour, fairing the fairing, so all of that. I want to see that, and that's what Phillip Island produced. Because it's all, I mean, just simple rule: faster circuits, so not just fast in a straight line, sweeping corners, tend to produce better racing than circuits with tight corners. That's just sort of a general rule. Phillip Island, fast sweeping corners, good racing, and traditionally Phillip Island did make good racing. So I know, okay, for the people there and for Dorna, okay, remember now Dorna, they're not called Dorna anymore, they're now called MotoGP Entertainment something. Liberty Media has changed the name, but for them, okay, they the area, the venues pay MotoGP money to bring the show to town. Okay, a track cannot afford to pay MotoGP what it requires, and it won't make the money back in pure ticket sales. So what they always do is they get the local government to supply the money. Then the local government will make enough money because of all the tourism that comes into the industry. They make a profit. So it works very well. A place like Adelaide can afford a lot to pay MotoGP a lot more than a circuit on a little island somewhere in the south of England, south of Australia. So for MotoGP, this is why Formula One's all going that way. They earn a lot more money. The deal with Adelaide will pay far more than Phillip Island will. And then, as you say, accessibility. Now, kids and all that, everybody, living in Adelaide, you can go stay in a city, lots more accommodation, lots more to do, lots more facilities. Okay, so for MotoGP, it's good. For the spectators on the ground, it's good. What about the millions and millions of people watching at home? Is it better?
I don't know, Don, but my personal concern, having been on racetracks myself, and obviously these bikes are just absolutely amazingly fast, strong, set up for circuit racing. How will they adapt to a street circuit all of a sudden? I can't see it working. I don't think these bikes can run on a street circuit effectively. I don't know if it's going to be something that's going to be worthwhile to watch.
So here's the thing: we do have a map of the Adelaide or the proposed Adelaide circuit. Remember, guys, that a lot of people going, "Oh, here we go! They're going to put MotoGP on the street circuit, and Márquez is going to crash into a cement barrier and die." And there was somebody who said, "Look at how many people die on the Isle of Man. How can they do that?" Oh, now they're putting. They sort of think that they're sort of watching Formula One or Isle of Man and sort of saying, "So that's what they're racing." The process is a lot more complicated than that. So. MotoGP has to, when the MotoGP goes to a circuit, it has to comply with the FIM, the big governing body for all motorcycle racing worldwide. In fact, in MotoGP, it's two different associations. It's FIM, and then there's another one called the IRTA, the International Racing Teams Association. They have to, it's sort of a little bit like a rider and team union, kind of. Well, not really union, more an association, as is in the name. What happens is that when they propose this new track, FIM sends out a whole lot of inspectors, and they have a bunch of strict rules. When a corner of this sort has to have this much runoff area, and this sort of area, this. It's got all sorts of things about access roads. There has to be access roads on the inside and outside of the circuit, around the whole circuit. What the pits need to look like, what the barriers at different places have to look like. Where they put airbags, or where the airbags have to go. It really is a long list of stipulations that the track has to meet. And the inspectors go there and very thoroughly go through every single point and tick it off. So the track has to meet that before they will give the stamp of approval. So to say, well, it's a street circuit, therefore, no, street circuit or not, it's going to meet the same list of approvals that all the circuits, the sort of full-time circuits have to meet. There is a map of it showing the runoff areas, and they look okay. I mean, I can't tell you what some of the other stuff looks like. Adelaide, the circuit seems to mostly work through a park of some sort, which is kind of clever. So it's in a city, but not quite in a city. And it does look like there is enough. Yeah. My only thing is, unless the FIM is going to give in and kind of say, oh no, they're going to give some sort of liberties, but I can't see them doing that. I mean, one death, if one rider dies, hits a wall, or hits a post, or hits a tree or something and dies, you know, that's it, you know. So they know this. They know this. I mean, however much money Adelaide's bringing and Liberty Media are bringing in, one rider dies because of a part of the circuit that shouldn't have happened, and there's going to be, forgive the language, such a shitstorm. So they know this, and they know they're going to get a lot of scrutiny. Over and above that, the IRTA, if the riders are not happy, they will not ride. The IRTA will stand there and say, we're not happy with that, we're not riding. They will. You know, so there is all these barriers in place to make sure the track, and according to the map, it looks good. The only thing is, the track looks tight. It's all mostly slow, tight corners. And it doesn't make good racing. Those sort of things, I mean, the show might be go, oh, look at it, street, wow. Just think in 5 years' time, when we've seen the street and the buzz of it's gone, and now we are going to this place where just the racing's a bit crap. Is that what we want? Is it worth it? Is it when people stop watching? It depends how MotoGP is making their money. I mean, are they making more money off people watching, or are they making more money off the venues? I don't know. But less people watching means less sponsors, less video passes, less TV money, and then the teams themselves, they start losing sponsorship. They start losing support. So, I mean, are we going to take away currently the greatest circuit? I mean, I'm good for this new thing of moving to street circuits, but are we going to take away the single greatest circuit for racing on the calendar, given that there's a bunch of really crap circuits there? And I think of Hungary. Hungary, tight little track.
What?
The racing was crap. Valencia, the racing's a beautiful circuit. Racing's usually a bit crap. And we're keeping all of those sort of things there and taking away instead the most spectacular circuit. Is that a good long-term strategy? I don't know. Unless Phillip Island just would not play ball, unless the Victoria government. And I have heard that the Victoria government is not the easiest. I mean, little things like you riders are saying when you ride to the circuit, you know there's going to be a roadblock. You know they're going to pull you over. You know they're going to, which is not good for tourism and that. So unless Phillip Island or that was really, really not playing ball, I don't know. Is this a good long-term strategy? I don't think so.
Well, I'll let you know. I've booked my tickets. I will be attending the last Phillip Island MotoGP this year, and I do look forward to it. I've rented a camper van, so I'll have my own toilet there. I'll be all right.
I hate you slightly. Like, seriously, I kind of wish you'd catch fire right now.
Well, maybe we can do a live update from a circuit on a day. We had the Thailand tests just conclude today, and interesting news out of Thailand.
Well, yes. I mean, the usual testing shows very little, and I'm going to give you an example of where testing sort of doesn't always show the full story. I was watching, especially there's 2 days of testing in Thailand. There's a morning session and an afternoon session. So morning session is session 1, afternoon session is session 2. So overall there's 4 sessions. And generally MotoGP shows the results of each session, a bit like a practice during but you got to look at kind of the overall. Now I was looking at day 2. Now most of the riders set their best times on day 2, as you'd sort of expect. Brad Binder was almost last. He was down with Toprak and Michele Pirro right up until the last 10 minutes of session 2. And he went out right at the very end, put on a soft tyre and set a fast lap. The other riders, including Pedro Acosta, Pedro's in 6th place. So most of the other riders, Marc Márquez, Bagnaia, a lot of them went out and set their best times in the morning session. Now you think about the session, the testing itself. They do per day between 70 and 80 laps of riding. Now a race is like 25 to 30 laps, and their riders are exhausted after that. They get off, they are tired, they have to conserve energy. 80 laps in a day is a lot of riding. And I know they're fit buggers, but they feel it. And Thailand is hot, and Thailand is everything. So Brad went out at the very end, set his time then. Was he in peak physical form? I know he'd done a lot of laps, so maybe he's very in tune with the circuit. But was he in peak physical form when he went out and did that lap? or compared to, say, the morning riders. Most of the riders by sort of the second session have packed up and gone home. A lot of them hardly even set a lap time that's in that second session of the last day. So is it fair to look at Brad Binder's lap time compared to, for example, his teammate Pedro Acosta, who set it in the morning when he was still fresh and ready to go? Or maybe Brad had a bit of advantage because he had more sort of time on the track. Do you see the complexity of trying to read into testing?
I did see some frustration there from Fabio Quartararo, obviously, saying that he doesn't get to go out and do 2 sessions on the same bike. Lots of development, changing consistently, swing arm, chassis, and all that. But the question here is, knowing that Fabio Quartararo has already signed with another company next year, can he really expect Yamaha to curtail to his best wishes all the time?
Well, I was listening to some of the MotoGP commentators, and they tend to be. Jeremy Clarkson made he had a great sort of comparison. He said the journalism. He said it was about a car. He said this car is as soft as the journalism in an in-flight magazine, which I thought was jolly damn funny. But the MotoGP commentators are kind of like that. Yeah. You know what I mean? So they tend to be very diplomatic. They try and sort of speak the truth. Not harshly though, so they're very kind. They're very kind about everything they say. After all, it's not their job to necessarily spread the truth, but also make MotoGP look good. MotoGP is paying them. They can't make MotoGP look bad in any way. Even they have said Fabio Quartararo is going somewhere else next year. Even they were kind of saying, look, he's leaving. And you think about this. Think about Quartararo. He's 27 years old. He is possibly the best rider on the grid. I mean, we don't know. We don't know. But he's always completely outperforming his teammates, very much so. He's potentially the best rider on the grid, if not one of the best riders in the grid. And yet for the last few years, he's been stuffing around trying to get top 10s. He's 27 years old. He's in the peak of his career. And instead of winning championships and racking up championships and racking up wins, he's got this bloody Yamaha V4, who then now, in the peak of his career, Yamaha decided we're going to completely change directions, build something we've never built before, and we're going to now go for it. Oh, by the way, Fabio, here we go, now you've got to test stuff. And so he's not sitting there, now he's spending this whole year, in the peak of his racing career, developing a bike for Yamaha, instead of winning championships. Thank you, Yamaha, for everything, but get stuffed. Also get stuffed. You know what I mean? It's just he wants to go out there and win. So I honestly, whether the Yamaha gets a lot better, I mean, maybe it's the wrong move. Maybe next year the Yamaha thrives and they get all together. But I just think stuff that he's going to go to a brand that's already got a decent. He's going to go to a brand that's already got a decent bike, a decent platform, and he's going to go and stuff it. He needs to win championships because by the time Yamaha gets his act together, for all you know, he's in his early 30s, and there's some youngster like Quartararo or something causing trouble already. So, yeah, the Yamaha, when they spoke to Fabio, he basically said, "What's the problem?" He sort of, in a very polite way, said everything. He was talking about the motor, he was talking about the handling, and he said sort of everything can be improved, which is true because the V4, the weight, the style of the weight, the way the weight is kind of spread throughout the motor, where it's all the center of gravity is all defined, all that kind of stuff. It's all completely different to the inline 4. It's a completely different motorcycle, not just in terms of engine characteristics, the chassis characteristics, the way it turns, the way it handles, the way the suspension works, the way it works on the tires, everything is different. It's almost a clean sheet. They can just about throw away everything they had before with the inline and they start afresh. So Yamaha is basically a brand new manufacturer to the series. They're KTM in 2000 and I think it was 17, they first joined. That's where they are now.
I hear you, Don, but in Yamaha's defense, I don't know if you know why they're moving to the V4 motor though.
Tires. Simple as that. So there's a spec tire, and the Michelin and next year Pirelli bring a whole lot of different tires and say, right, everybody try it all out. All the different manufacturers vote which tires they want, and they tally up the votes, and the tire that's the most popular gets it. The tire that works on a V4 and the tire that works on an inline 4 are not the same. So Yamaha kept getting outvoted, and they kept having to ride on tires that better suit a V4 than an inline four. Also, I mean, you got the rules of MotoGP and that. A lot of that also comes down to a mandate from the different manufacturers. And again, what works on a V4 is not the same as what works on an inline four. So they kept getting outvoted. So they kept having to sort of move into territories where they're at a disadvantage and trying to compete. So it's one of those where if you can't beat them, join them. Look, for Yamaha, by all means, move to V4, very good. But I understand for Fabio, in the peak of his career, I'm sorry, he does not want to be a test rider trying to get Yamaha up to greatness again at the expense of his own career. He wants to be a multiple MotoGP champion by now. He wants to be a much more winning a rider. And what, must he sit and wait till Yamaha gets their act together, if they ever do? Nah, I think good. Go and move. Get Yamaha need to do what Honda did. Get some reliable riders who can do laps. I mean, they got Jack Miller there. Good idea. Get a few Alex Riddens. Get a few of these riders who are not sort of potentially best out there. I mean, Yamaha got who was it? Honda got Marini and Mir. I mean, two steady riders. Go out there, develop the bike, we build it with you. Where Fabio's going, no, I could be world champion. I need to win. I need to win now. I don't want to sit there and wait for this 2 or 3 years for this project to sort of kick off. So yeah, I could move. While we're on Yamaha, just a quick one. Toprak. He finished the test down in 21st. In fact, the only rider he beat was Michele Pirro, who's the Ducati test rider. He is 0.8 of a second behind the other rookie, who's Diego Moreira. Now that does look like a bit of a disaster for the rookie. It's not a great outlook for World Superbikes. However, you compare Toprak not to Diego Moreira. You compare him to the other Yamaha riders. Remember, Diego Moreira's on a pretty good Honda. I mean, Honda's looking pretty good. I'm just looking here. I mean, quite good. Jean Mir's in 10th place, which is quite good. Whereas the top Yamaha is Jack Miller in 16th. So you look at it that way. So Toprak's time is 1 minute 30.772. The fastest, he is just over a second behind the top Yamaha, and that kind of makes it look a bit better. You know what I mean? That it's still not great. He's struggling with the tires, and what's interesting, I mean, both tires seem to not be working with him. He can't brake as hard on that front. It does not support his style. Remember that MotoGP riding is very much an inline riding. You've got to ride the bike both wheels in line, not much sort of movement. The front doesn't like that. It locks up. The other thing is that and I've heard Brad Binder comment about this a ton, when the rear starts sliding. Now on other bikes you close the throttle slightly, you get the rear end back again, and then you can still accelerate. When the Michelin rear starts sliding, it doesn't stop. In other words, it just keeps spinning, and you play with the throttle and the thing just moves, but it keeps spinning. It won't stop spinning, and I don't quite know how the physics of this work. But they were saying even when you get the bike up straight onto the straight, it still spins. So once you spin a little bit, you lose so much drive. You're stuffed. You know what I mean? So here you've got Toprak, who's this very aggressive rider. He likes to brake hard. Get all out of shape, get into the corner, stop, turn the bike, get on that throttle, power up. That's his style. And you got these tires going, hey, I don't think so. And everything is kind of working against him. He's going to have to completely reinvent his entire riding style. And I fear he's having a bit of a hard time, and I fear he's going to continue to have a bit of a hard time. But yeah, let's see what happens.
Now, the other rumor that's going around is people are saying, yeah, but Yamaha is possibly running the 850 motor from next year already this season, and that has been more than once. Yamaha has said they just can't afford to be 150cc down. As it is so competitive. Ducati is so fast, KTM is so fast that they cannot afford to run that motor and that spec. Yeah, just an interesting fact here, Don. So this year the bore on the Yamaha apparently is 81 millimeters max, and they're running on a 40% sustainable fuel. And then from next year onwards, the cylinder bore will be reduced to 75 millimeter max, and they'll be running on 100% sustainable fuel. So just in that, from 1000cc to the 850, it's quite different. They don't have that fuel yet, and obviously you're not going to be sacrificing that sort of power And as it is, they're struggling as it is, just to keep up, even with 1,000cc.
My full answer is I'm not entirely sure. It's so difficult when you kind of hear the riders are one thing, so the team managers and the team personnel tend to be they're not the most sort of open. They tend to give these very kind of political sort of answers. They sound like politicians. And you're never quite sure what's going on. They don't want to give stuff away. They really don't. So when you ask technical stuff, like what capacity are you running? Well, yes, you see, they give an answer like this. Well, yes, you see, it's very important for us to, remember the question was, what capacity? Well, you must understand, it's very important for us to maintain a competitive edge while continuing our development project and continuing the goals of Yamaha. So the capacity we're running is one that's best in line with our goals and with our values and what we think is best for the riders and the team. That's the answer. And you sort of go, huh?
It doesn't say much, does it? And
sometimes they just blatantly lie, and that's just to put people off. I mean, my favorite was Ducati last year when they had the whole Pecco Bagnaia debacle. At the beginning of the year, Ducati basically said the 2025 bike is pretty much the 2024, slightly different aerodynamics, slightly different front end. Other than that, it's exactly the same. Then by the end of the year, we find no, it's a different motor, and they're running a different ride-out device, and they're running a different. And you just find that, hang on, no, that none of that was true. It's a completely different motorcycle. There's all sorts of things going on in there, and it's all very different. And so you know what I mean. You don't really know. It might make sense. I mean, it sounds like they're better off just riding 850 because it sounds like this year is going to be a step up anyway. Maybe they are just better off just going 850cc and then just kind of gritting their teeth, knowing they'll be better off next year on the fuel, on everything like that.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Yeah, let's see what happens. What I don't. You said that the aerodynamic thing, and again, when you hear stuff, I sort of give a little bit of critical thinking. So next year has less aerodynamics, less, not more. Whereas before, Yamaha ran inline fours with no aerodynamics. So it works with lots of aerodynamics and it works with no aerodynamics, but medium aerodynamics. You see what I mean? It's like, hello, well, what? I heard not from other sources, but it does make more sense to get the tires and all of that. Yeah.
One of the things I was quite happy to see in early morning testing yesterday was Jorge Martin was out there and lapping, and looks like he's keen to ride this year, even though he's already signed a contract, I believe, with Honda. Is it? Who's he going to next year? Yamaha?
Well, we don't know where he's going next year. I mean, there were rumor mills, but nothing. I mean, I think some of the I think there are three people we can be quite sure are moving. I'm pretty sure the Pedro Acosta to Ducati rumors are true. It just sounds like, okay, they spoke about Pedro Acosta, and I'll get back to Martin now. They spoke, when Pedro Acosta speaks about KTM this year, and remember, this is his final year of his contract, and he's very much a wanted, he's very much a rider in demand. His response to the KTM this year, he says the KTM is better than last year, it is easier to ride, but then the competition is also stronger. So he was almost quite forward in saying the KTM is not as good as the Ducati and the Aprilia. But, and then they give the usual answers. Yes, but, racing is different. We see what happens. The usual diplomatic answers. Who was it? Pecco Bagnaia basically said that before the race next season, you'll know where I'm going to be next year, which is... that pretty much does say he's going somewhere else. It sounds like Aprilia wants him, and I like that idea. I think he will have more fun at Aprilia.
Me too.
He will be there with Marco Bezzecchi probably. With Marco Bezzecchi, who's his fellow VR46 rider, and I believe they sort of get on quite well, and it's just going to be a very fun, easygoing sort of team. A bunch of Italians going well. Which then leads us on to where you said Jorge Martin. I would kind of insinuate Jorge Martin is not there. Honda would be a good mix for him. It would also mean that if Fabio Quartararo is going to Honda, then Honda's doing a complete reshuffle next year. And yeah, we're going to end up with poor Marini and poor Mir, who've been working so hard to develop this motorcycle to help bring this project up. Okay, the Honda's pretty good now. You two can go. Bye-bye. Bring it to... Oh, man, MotoGP is harsh, isn't it? It's
Thank you
so
very much.
harsh.
It is absolutely ridiculous. I did. Obviously, I mean, it's testing. Who knows what's really going on there? Temperatures, tires. There was a clip of Brad Binder saying that it's really just doing laps. But it did seem that the Hondas were out there and running reasonable times. But then again, Fabio Quartararo last year was setting up pole positions on those fast laps, but he didn't have its sustainability through the race. It doesn't translate. A fast qualifying lap doesn't translate to race pace. We've covered Yamaha. We've briefly touched on Aprilia. We've had a bit of a look at Honda, but we haven't spoken about Ducati. Rumor has it that Ducati is running basically a 2024 bike, and if we were to look at Pecca, he seems a bit more comfortable out there. Alex was out there circulating pretty good. Mark, I think he put his bike down twice in the first session in the morning, but he seemed to have recovered and come around with some development there. The VR46 team seems to be running pretty reasonable within the framework. What is your thoughts on the Ducatis?
Ducati seems to have built a bike that is a lot more kind of friendly this year. Again, I don't want to say what exactly is in there, because as we said last year, they said, oh no, we did this, and then as the season progressed, it turns out it was all garbage. We have no idea what they're actually running. What I will say, a little kind of hints, the 2026 bike is definitely different to the 2024, and I'll tell you why, is because Alex Márquez is now on a 2026 bike. Last year he was on a 2024, and he's looking good, he's looking fast, but when in the sort of post-test interview, he did say that he needs to adapt his riding style more to the 2026 bike, which immediately tells me it's not a 2024, which immediately tell you there is something inherently different. Now, when I look at the again, testing is tricky. I look at the times from everybody, especially the Ducati riders, in this test compared to last test. Pecco Bagnaia does look stronger. Last test he looked kind of strong, but not like over the top strong. But he is stronger this test than he was last year. But last test he looked okay. I think he was just in the top 10, and then that turned into a complete disaster throughout the year. This year he's 4th. He is just a smidgen behind his teammate Marc Márquez. You got Alex Márquez in 5th. Franco Morbidelli, who's not on a current bike, he's in 7th. Fabio Di Giannantonio's in 9th. Marc Márquez crashed 3 times throughout this test. I think twice yesterday, once today. He's been suffering with stomach problems. He said it affected him yesterday. Today, he said he feels a lot better, but he's not together. And he said mostly the crashes were down to lack of concentration, which kind of makes sense. He had 2 rather big crashes. One yesterday where he was going into the last corner. I think it was even his first lap out. I think it might have been. He hit the paint going into the last corner, up straight. The bike just went wah, and the bike went tumbling. This morning, then in the afternoon, he had a small low side, which wasn't so bad. And then this morning, he went down the hill. It was either this morning or so after. I can't remember. Anyway, today, the second day of testing, he went down Thailand. You go through turn 1, it's a sharp sort of 90-degree corner. You head down along straight, and then there's a sort of a 180-degree hairpin at the bottom. Márquez was on the brake, still mostly up straight. He just said he wasn't concentrating. He missed his brake marker, and he was going into the corner, and the front just went. And they have got footage, and man, that bike, it went all the way. It's got a long gravel trap there. It went all the way into the gravel trap, went into the airbag, and they had to actually stop the session to reinflate it. So he went down fast and hard in both of them. And I think at that point he just kind of said, okay, wait, stop right there. Let's not. I know what it's like. If you're not concentrating and you're not on form, first of all, you're not going to ride at your best. You're not giving any good input. You're not helping yourself, and you're probably trying to injure yourself. Just stop right there. And that's, I think, what he did. He made a very wise choice. So the Ducati this year does look better. It looks a lot stronger. Age-old story. We have to see what happens. When the actual racing starts, we'll know. Pecco Bagnaia was pretty good on this track last year also. So it also kind of depends on where he goes. We'll see how it works on the other one. Mind you, he looked pretty good at Sepang too. He does seem a lot more relaxed. Last year, he said things when they asked him about the bike. He said the bike has very good potential, which is his way of saying that it's really fast when Marc rides it, but not so fast when he rides it. This year, he looks a lot more relaxed. Can I give a little fun point about Marc Márquez? A little bit of interesting things, like when we say that riders don't always you don't always quite know what's going on. They're talking about Márquez signing for Ducati, and Ducati immediately now, before the season starts, they said, right, 2-year contract, 27-28, here we go. And Márquez has not signed it yet. And what he actually said is he wants potentially a 1-year contract instead of a 2-year contract. And the reasoning he's giving for not signing a contract yet is that he wants to see how his shoulder feels throughout the year. And this harks back to what we were talking about before. When is Marc Márquez going to retire? My answer to that was quite simply when he stops being happy, when he stops having fun, when he stops being competitive. And I did say, look, the only reason I can see Márquez for retiring early now is if his physical condition is not up to standards. And that's kind of interesting. It means that shoulder that he injured last year is still bugging him. It means he's not 100%. It means he's not entirely certain about his future and about his riding, and maybe it's possible he's not having 100 fun. I would say probability suggests that he is the favorite for this year to win it. I think he beats Rossi's record, although it's not really a record compared to others, but he beats Rossi's record, and then maybe he will say, okay, I've had enough. I'm tired. I'm a multi-millionaire. I'm going to go home and play with my dogs. So that is an interesting little tidbit. It points to the fact that things are not 100%, and we might be some truth in the rumors that Márquez might not be carrying on much further. That's excellent news for everybody else on the grid.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about it a lot. Sitting in the edit suite here, working on our the previous episode we did, episode 4, which we did this throwback, and we talked about all these racing legends. And in that we had Mick Doohan, and he had that big injury, and then he came back and he won the titles, and then it was that one big off, and that was his career. And I must admit, I was sitting here thinking to myself, Marc didn't recover. I think we spoke about this recently, and I think I said that Marc didn't seem to recover as fast as he would normally from his big off last year after he won the World Championship in 2025. He had that off, Bez connected with him, and he didn't seem to recover that quickly. And it could be a much more serious injury. But I think if it was a pretty serious accident for Marc, unfortunately, it could possibly be the end of his career. And like you say, it does seem that he might be struggling with a shoulder injury. And it's just, you have so many accidents, and then it just takes its toll. Coming back, I just want to circle back to Pecco Bagnaia. The rumors that Pecco has been signed possibly for Aprilia. Do you think psychologically Pecco can now just sit back, have a breather, and relax, and that could be why he's riding better?
Possibly. I mean, it might have something to do with it. Look, there's many different factors that go into everything, with riding. It's such a multifaceted sport. It really is. There's a lot of things that go into it. And maybe he's just kind of saying, okay, sod this, I don't need to put up with Ducati. Ducati, I love the brand. I know some of the people at the factory. They're such cool people. It's known, from what I hear, known as a pretty, in terms of the management running the race teams, it's a very, they expect a lot. It's a very demanding sort of team. Like, you perform. You must perform. And I think Aprilia might just be a little bit more ciao, easygoing, cappuccino, Italian. They don't, mind you, they don't have Germans watching over them, so maybe that's why.
You don't have a VW Audi group overseeing it in Aprilia like you have it in Ducati, so it is a much smaller company in it.
Yeah, it is exactly. So it'll be a little bit more relaxed. The thing about it, I mean, the question marks regarding Bagnaia at Aprilia, how long will it take him to adapt to the Aprilia riding style? Bagnaia is one of those riders who's very good when the bike is working with him. He's somebody who's not, he needs the bike to work. If the bike works with him and the team is able to make the bike work with him, he's fast. Whether that'll apply to Aprilia, whether he's able to get on that Aprilia and they're able to make it work for him, that's another story. But I do think his mental state of mind will be a bit better there. He does seem very relaxed. He does seem very happy. You see the interviews with him. He's got this. Bagnaia is one of those very gentle souls. He just stands there with his little. He's got this little like permanent smile on his face. This very relaxed look. I mean, he is that sort of stereotypical Ciao Ducati rider, you know. And. Yeah, he does seem quite content. You just see his demeanor in his interviews. Whereas last year, he just looked like he just sort of stood there like, I don't want to be here. I don't want to do this. I don't want to answer these questions. I'm not happy. Now he looks okay. So,
all right. So here we go. We've had our second test down. We both agree testing means very little, but we do draw on our conclusions. Manufacturer for here, who do you reckon 2026 manufacturer who's going to win the championship?
I mean, if I were putting money right now, if you told me you're right, put $1 million on something, I would put $1 million on Marc Márquez on a Ducati right now. However, my money is less confident than it would have been at this time last year. I still think he's the number one. I still think Ducati's number one, but it looks like the other Ducati riders are closer. They look more confident. They look better. And it looks like the Aprilias. I just look at all the different Aprilias going down the list. Even Jorge Martin, who has hardly tested this year, he was up in the 8th place. It does seem like the Aprilia is a decent package. It is a decent motorcycle. Whether it's as good as Ducati, I don't know. But the riders all seem very happy. And the results are looking good. But age-old story, when that light turns off on next week Sunday, and it's only a week, how excited are we? When the light does turn off, when the lights do turn off next week Sunday, everything stops. And when they move to another circuit, they're going to Brazil after that brand new circuit. When those lights turn off, you might find everything is completely different again. So that is one of the joys of MotoGP. I mean, we do look at this testing, we do look into it. It is fun to try and draw conclusions from it. But very often we find those conclusions as the season goes on just tend to completely fall apart. And I'm excited. I'm looking forward to see what happens this year. I suspect this year might be slightly more exciting than last year, and that for me is the big goal.
I'm gonna bring a controversial prediction to the table today. I reckon Marco Bezzecchi is gonna win the 2026 world title on that Aprilia.
I won't be unhappy if that happens. I like Bezzecchi, I like Aprilia. You know, it'll be a bit of an underdog story.
And I'm going to tell you how I get to the conclusion. I reckon with Jorge back in the mix, he's keen to play. Jorge will, and he's good at sprint racing. Let's make no mistake about that. Jorge can chip away at the sprint races. Marco will be, he's consistent. He was very consistent last year. We have Pekka back in the mix. Pekka is not that great a sprint racer, but he's really good at the Sunday races. I think Pekka might be chipping away points in the end of the day from Marc. And I have nothing against Marc. I think he's an amazing rider. And also we've got Alex chipping away. Last year, Alex was a front runner for a little bit there. So all these guys are going to be by stealing the ball away from Marc. But if it plays out the way I think it might play out this year, I think Bez might just I'd give him a 1 in 5 shot against Marc to actually get this title. I don't know if there's anybody else you can earmark for it, but I do think Bez might just be our 2026 champion.
I would, so at the moment, I would say Marc Márquez is the number 1. I would put Bezzecchi as the number 2. And as I say, it's not as confident as last year. You know, that Bezzecchi is definitely number 2. Yeah. And again, I'll be really happy. But I think, again, the overall goal for me, for MotoGP this year, is good racing. We want people glued to their seats.
Absolutely.
We want them glued to the TV. We want really good racing. And I just hope that's kind of the long-term goal. Heading back to the beginning of this discussion, the Phillip Island thing, I hope that's the long-term goal, and I hope that's what happens long-term. And regardless of where they're racing and what are they doing and where the riders get to go to the toilet, I hope we have really, really, really good racing.
Hey, Donovan, as always, it is an absolute honor to have you on the show. I love your insight. I love catching up with my old mate Donovan here, and I really appreciate the time, effort, and your unique Ducati perspective in this. Obviously, I'm backing the Aprilia team. Thank you so much for episode 5.
Dude, it gets more fun every time. And next episode we'll be talking about actual racing, and I'm extremely excited. I will speak to you then.
So excited. Just can't wait for Thailand to kick off. It's going to be so exciting this season. Hey guys, if you're enjoying what we're doing here, Don and myself, we absolutely love what we're doing. We'd love for you to comment down below. And if you haven't done so yet, please like and subscribe. We'd really appreciate you guys helping us grow our channel and just letting us know that you actually enjoy what we're doing here. Until next time, keep a rubber side down.